let's start it now. So you also have to get them teaching quicker. So in placement one, they've got it's quite luxurious. They come to school at the end of September, and then they only teach one lesson before October half term. And then we gradually build to 8. So, and we do that because we want them to teach really good lessons, and we don't want them to be utterly overwhelmed. You're not going to have that. You're going to have 1 week of induction, then they're going to do 4, and it ramps up to 12 really quite quickly. So they're going to feel the burn a bit, but they're not to blame you. So you just got to say, this is perfectly normal. This is what's supposed to happen. Get on board. You've got to get quicker with your planning. The other thing to explain to them, I'll try not to repeat myself later on, is that they're teaching, instead of 8 over 4 days, they're teaching 12 over 5 days. So the burden isn't actually that much more. They've got less, they don't have to get their plans into somebody allowing for the Friday at uni. In actual fact, they should be able to manage their time a lot better at placement 2, because they're mostly just school. So again, any moaning, just say no, this is how it is. Don't take that on board, just move them on and tell them, well, a bit of this is teaching, get quicker. This is what you've got to do. Okay. But it is a bit of a sting where they're saying to you, oh, I'm teaching a lot quicker. You're also new coming into a group of mentors. That really isn't an issue. You'll be at subject-specific meetings soon. Just bed in and get on with everybody. But of course, some of these other mentors know each other really quite well. And sometimes it's a bit odd, isn't it, to be the new person coming in. But really, there shouldn't be many issues. But I thought I'd better bring them up just in case. So how to get ready for your new arrival. Now, what we've tried to get the trainees to do is to organise a Zoom meeting between their existing mentor and their new mentor. Now, this wasn't necessarily, we're okay with it, but it was an idea that came from our steering group. All right, so they wanted us to get the mentors together so they could talk about the trainee and talk about their targets and strengths, and then a chance for the trainee to meet their new mentor. Now, we've been really clear that this has to be driven by the trainee, not by you, okay? It's the trainee's responsibility to organise this Zoom, to let you know when it is, organise their existing mentor, and you're there in this meeting. So the way it should work is you chat to the existing mentor first, and you'll find out all about your new trainee. Now, obviously, as we all know, that some kids are great in your lessons, and they might have difficulties in others. And you're like, I don't recognise the child that you're talking about. This kid's brilliant for me. I don't get why you're saying they're so troublesome, or vice versa, right? We've got a bit of that probably with some of this, where you might hear stuff about a trainee. And I think we've got to take it all trying to be without bias. So we want targets and strengths, but then we make our own judgment when our trainee arrives. Okay, it should be a very professional conversation, just talking about their teaching. But again, you'll know them when you get to know them. And the trainee won't be in that conversation until after. So you two talk, then the trainee comes back in, the existing mentor will go, and you'll be left with your new trainee so that they can ask you questions about what your school is like, what the first day is like, all that kind of stuff. So the thing that you'll talk to them about is that they've got to, where am I there? Yeah, about getting them ready. So things that they might ask you about is what time to arrive on that first day. It's the stuff that really worries them. That night before, that real sort of Sunday-itis that we get in our jobs, that, you're worried about the little things, not necessarily the big things. What to wear, what time to arrive, where can I park? So I've told them not to ask silly questions like, how do I get to your school? That's a no-no. Where is your school? Is a no-no. So they've got to go away and research your school. They shouldn't ask really daft questions, but parking, they won't know from the website, will they? And that stuff does matter, especially if they've got kids and somebody needs to know what time to get to you and work out their program for the morning. All right. So let them know that. Let them know about induction. And then the other things you need to consider separate to that conversation. They've got to hit the ground quicker. You might want to warn them about that. We'll talk about the 12 hours in a sec. This bit's really important. They have got to still observe all the way through their teaching practice, first or second. A really important part of learning is seeing other teachers doing it. And I saw in an evaluation the other day, it was a mentor evaluation, and the mentor wrote that one of their trainees had said, no, after October, I don't have to see any other lessons. And it was just a complete fib, right? I won't say what subject it was. It was a complete fib, and they are supposed to observe at least twice a week, right? 2 hours a week. Now, it doesn't have to be for a full lesson. We all know that when we're really busy, sitting in the back of the room thinking, you know what, I've got enough, I can go. And it's really important they observe outside your subject. So they should, like in science, they should be out observing art lessons, DT lessons. They should be observing geography lessons. They're going to learn so much. And it all makes so much more sense now that they're moving into placement 2. So if any of them say to you, no, I don't have to go, that's not true. All right. They do have to still observe. It's incredibly important. Please make sure that you liaise with your professional tutor, that induction is in place, particularly if you're one of our schools where you're only getting one trainee. It's very awkward for that one trainee. That's quite a lonely place to be. Most of our schools, we've got multiple trainees going in and from other unis, but please do check if you've got what we call a lone trainee, because that can be quite hard for them. So how does this placement work and what to expect? So it's the same entitlement as placement 1. They have to feel a part of the whole school. They have to have their mentor meetings once a week. So all of this was covered in that new mentor video that I hope you've watched. So I won't go through it in loads of detail, but it's exactly the same. Their entitlements are exactly the same. And a lot of this, all of it, is in our mentor guidebook that's on our website. So please make sure that you have a look at especially the essential bits in that guidebook. Now, their APK assignment is their big written assignment that they do for us, is due on March the 3rd. You shouldn't have anything to do with that assignment, okay? Nothing to do with it at all. It's none of your business. You don't care. Just say, I don't care, right? It's got nothing to do with me. The worst thing they could do is arrive in your school and say, yeah, I'm still really stressed over my APK. Please, can I not teach many lessons yet? Big, fat, no, okay? That's placement 1 business. It's got nothing to do with us now. You manage your time. They'll have had a half term. We're not listening to that, okay? They need to manage what they're doing. So APK, nothing to do with you. What you're working them towards is this final one, this RPK, which is evidence-driven. So you're much more interested in this placement about their brilliant teaching, the resources they're making, the lessons, the relationships, and gathering that evidence together. That's really your role in placement 2. Yeah, the new mentor training goes through all that anyway. Now, their timetable. Now, again, this is talked about a bit in the new mentor video, but it's different for placement 2. So in this one, we are teaching more. It's just check myself. Yeah, I do get to that. Okay, I'll start with this now, and then I'll go back. So they are teaching a lot more. Now, this is a rule of thumb. It's not written in tablets of stone, okay, because every trainee is different. Their first week is just induction. Please don't get them teaching. They haven't been in school yet. They won't have a clue. Now, 4 lessons, if they can, in that second week. Now, for those of you in science or DT, where we're dealing with prep sheets and requisitions and all of that stuff, 4 lessons might be a bit of an ask, because they've got to get their prep sheet in on a certain day to be able to teach it the week after, okay? But I spoke to Claire, who's our lead, and she's like, no fee, 4, 3, 4, if it's less, it's okay. So long as they get to 12, it's all right. So 4 lessons, 6 lessons, 8 lessons, 10 and 12. It is ramping up quite quickly. So the notion that they're going to do brilliant lessons isn't really there, okay? We've got to be pragmatic with them. I think if they do, they've got to plan every lesson properly on the Sussex lesson plan, but they can't all be brilliant if they're doing all of those each week. I know compared to your timetable, it seems really, really tiny, but because they're still processing, some of them are taking 4 or 5 hours to plan a lesson, right? They're still at that stage. So you'll see, if you haven't mentored before, you'll soon see how slow their planning is. So 12 weeks, 12 lessons by Easter, if we can. So they still need to have a mixture of, I'll go back again, a mixture of Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4. That's really important. If you're one of those subjects that's an 11 to 18 course, it's different, obviously, because you don't teach Key Stage 3. So if you're psychology or business studies or anything like that, oh, Christina, you've put your hand up.
Sorry,
and then I've got another. Yes, okay.
I was just wondering if it has to be 12 or if it can be 13 and 11, because I've got a timetable that is not always the same.
Oh, yes. So long as it's 24 over a fortnight, that's okay. Yeah, okay. Absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. And Becky?
Hi, I'm at SEN school. I think we only got to, I think it was supposed to be 30 over the placement. Is that right, or is it still?
Say that again, Becky.
Because I'm a special needs school.
Yeah.
I think the early lady running it at my school said that they do 30 hours over the placement. So is that still correct?
Over a fortnight or over the entire placement?
The whole
Oh,
placement.
because they're doing the 6-week SEN placement. Yes. So I haven't got the rules for that. I'm sorry. I will find out for you and get back to you. If that's what it says in all their paperwork, then that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, we've been doing it for a while, so I'm assuming they're right. But
yeah. You know more than me. Grand. Brilliant. Okay. So this timetable, it is about them. They've got to settle in first, and then they've got to move on quickly. Yeah, they have got to move on quickly. There's no time to sort of fart arse around and pretend they're not a teacher. They've got to get stuck in. So scaffold they're teaching. Now, this is really important. It has to be contrasting. Now, that's why they're moving to a second placement, is to have a different experience. Okay. So sometimes, because some of them, if they live in rural West Sussex, finding a massive contrast won't happen. Okay, it doesn't really exist in rural West Sussex. And what we're trying to do with our trainees is not give them a massive workload by sending them an hour and a half one way and an hour and a half the other way. It's not good for them. So the contrast might be instantly obvious to you when you see where they've come from. But every school is contrasting. I've never been in a school that looks or feels like any other one. They're all different. But the way that you design their timetable could emphasize the contrast. So when you talk to them in that Zoom meeting before they arrive, find out what classes they've taught, at what level, and what kinds of children they've had to adapt the curriculum for. So in particular, rural West Sussex, we might not have had, in their first placement, they might not have had lots of classes where they had children who have English as an additional language. So if you've got any classes in your timetable or in somebody in your department where you do have pockets of children where our trainee teachers have to adapt their practice for those children, that's what we're looking for. So when they talk to you about where they're at, what they've already done, we are trying to find gaps of opportunity so we can plug those gaps in placement 2. So particularly for subject knowledge in science, if they've only taught certain modules, we're going to make sure they get different ones. We want to make sure by the end of placement 2, we've covered as much as we can and they've practiced as much as they can. So try to do, a mirror view of the timetable that they've already had, realizing they've still got to do Key Stage 3 and they've still got to do Key Stage 4. Okay. If you have got A-level within your A-level or higher BTEC within your school, try not to put too much of that in there for a trainee that's on the normal 11 to 16, but some experience of that would be really, really useful. I'm aware I've got stuff coming up in the chat, but I'll get to the chat at the end if that's okay. I'm just going to fire through this because I don't know if I can bring it up while still here. So we've got some really weird term dates, but you should plan for them being with you 5 days a week. So you include Fridays in that timetable, which is not what they had in placement 1. So Fridays are a part of it because they're only with us for a smattering, tiny sprinkling of Fridays. And for some of you, it'll only be 2 because of the way that your term dates have worked out. Now, something really important. I've mentioned observation. Put their observation slots on their timetables. Stick them on there, right? So they probably will do 2 lessons a week of teaching assistant work, where they're helping. They could be helping in your lesson. Do yourselves a favor. You're going to be doing a lot of work with this trainee. They can be in TAing in one of your classes. That's absolutely fine. So TAing should be on their timetable, or working with your SEND department, which is really good for them as well. Or your school might be unique in some way, that you might have a hearing impairment unit or something else that's unique to your school that really could help our trainees enrich their experience. But put those observation slots on there so they know they're there, okay? And then it can't be avoided. I've talked about that. Now, assessing them, I've mentioned the apple and tea. right? And this is what it looks like. So in the new mentor video, it's in there. This is what it looks like. You're coming in at phase D. Now, we've had a little bit of a problem with some of them not putting in enough detail. So the trainees fill in their bit, and then you write your bit. Well, that's the way it should work in principle. What I think has been happening with some, and I totally understand why, there's been a lot of staff absences, it's been bonkers this term, right? That things have sort of happened almost parallel. So the trainee's been filling theirs, the mentor's been filling in their bit, and then they're cobbled together at the end. And then when we look at them, we're like, oh, hang on a minute, how did this get signed off? That trainee's hardly written anything. Now, this is a good one, right? So I've brought an example. It's from my Ruby. So this is what it ends up looking like. So this is about standard 2, standard 3, all linked to the CCF. This is the kind of level of detail. This is for PPPB that she wrote this for. So as they go through to your stage, they should be writing more. And their progress isn't just, what did I see on one person's? I've planned lessons. But how? You know, were they all pants? You know, just planning lessons. Well, I hope you have. Otherwise, how are you still teaching? It's what kind of lessons have they planned? How were they successful? What impact did they have on the kids? And then the evidence bit is prove it. Where's the evidence for that? So this is Ruby talking about using more questioning. She's been really quite specific about her year 7 classes. This one is where she's talking about, actually no, this is Rosie, doing extra physics stuff for subject knowledge. It's really specific and quite rich. And that was written before Christmas. So you can imagine the level of detail that we're going to be looking for the phase that you will be assessing. They surely have some decent stories to tell about pupil progress. And if they haven't got a decent story to tell, then we've got a problem. All right. They need to invest time into this. So they write their progress, they say about their evidence, they talk about where they've met the CCF entitlement, and then they write their targets. Now, what would be better here is if they had CCF targets in their targets. So which aspects of that core content framework are they focusing on in this next bit of placement? And then here's some examples of mentor feedback. Redacted like a Susie Gray report. So we've taken the names out. This is really using the CCF language as well, this particular mentor, very particular to where the trainee has met all the criteria. That's the general one. And then they write their strengths and they write their targets. And again, here, like I said before, it's not just what they need to work on, it's telling them how to do it. So what and how. Yeah. So this is what you did well. And then this is what you've got to work on and how you're going to do it. And that's a good level of detail there. Again, we've seen some, it's one line. I've seen get better at behavior management as a target. It's absolutely useless. I'm going to be honest, it's absolutely useless. It won't do anyone any good. It's just useless. And then the professional tutor writes their comments and then it all gets sent off. But please, trainee stuff first. Your stuff after you've seen their evidence. It must be evidence driven, okay? Evidence driven, and then the professional tutor writes their stuff on there. And then the last bit I wanted to say to you is it's a copy of what I put in the new mentor training as well. It's how to work with us. We want to work really closely with you. Early alerts are what we're looking for. It's dreadful when we find out a day before a support plan is due, which is letting us know that they're struggling. And you're like, I've got to write it today. You're like, no, we needed to know weeks ago. Trust your judgment. You might be brand new mentors, but you're teachers and you know when something's a little bit off, right? You must have worked with colleagues where you're like, that's a bit off, right? You know what that looks like. You know when someone isn't committed or embedding themselves into their role enough. So trust that you know what's going on. Right, I'll stop the share there and I will head to the chat. Right. Someone's just telling me they've got COVID. All right, I'll tell you what we'll do then. Let's go for hands up. Has anybody got any questions? Oh, go on.
I'll see you all tomorrow. Yeah.
That's just a microphone on. Okay.
Oh, yeah, that was my microphone turning on, but I do have a question.
Good. Go ahead, Matt.
Are we going to get this PowerPoint afterwards as well?
Mm-hmm.
Great stuff. Thank you.
Yes, you will. No worries at all. Anything else?
Hi, can I just ask?
Yeah.
I was prompted to leave Monday afternoons free.
Why's that?
I don't know. For university stuff was the comment I had. No? Period
No.
3 on a Monday? Okay.
Why would no?
No.
No.
Why?
No.
I'll get back to our coordinator about that.
I don't know why it would be Monday period 3. That's specific. I mean, as a sample timetable, well, it depends. You might want Monday period 3 for a lesson with them. So yeah, don't have those kind of restrictions on. Oh, someone's saying it's for professional studies or something, maybe. Are you guys in the same school?
It is for professional studies, Joe.
Oh, is it?
Joe
Okay.
Whiteman was saying, yeah.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
particular, I think that's a really weird one. Never seen that written down anyway. So yeah, so if your school is doing professional studies within a day, not after school, obviously you'll have to protect that from the timetable, and that will have an implication to how you actually fit them in. Yeah, I thought that was a bit weird. Yeah, no, don't. Their university work is their time. All right. Now, on their own timetable, they might block out, once they've got their timetable from you, here's my timetable, these are my classes, these are my observations, this is my teaching assistant stuff, there's professional studies, there's my mentor meeting, there's some intervention work I'm doing with year 11, and then I've got 1 hour left that I'm going to keep for uni work. I mean, the reality is they really shouldn't be working on uni work during the day. They really shouldn't. Not when they're going to 12 hours a week. If they're in school, it's school, okay? And that definitely would be something that would, there's a little red button that I imagine that you go beep, if they're sitting there doing their APK in those first few weeks. I mean, that's just not a beep. That's a great big klaxon, okay? If another thing, actually, I'm going to just stop the recording there.